Ride it like a wave. So ride your emotion like a wave. And just letting it come in and go out and come in and go out. And so there are other techniques, so it kind of depends on what the emotion is that comes up. So say it's something, I was thinking about different scenarios. Say it's something that comes up that's actually pretty traumatizing to you. It's something that you're having a hard time quieting your mind around. Of course, if you can get yourself in the most balanced place possible, so if you've got a big one, an external vulnerability going on, if you can get yourself in the most balanced state and go into kind of self-preservation, make sure that you're taking extra good care of yourself. What you can do too is when the primary emotion comes up typically, and then the thoughts that go with it, you can do different techniques. So you can, we always talk about how, just say you have an emotion of anxiety about something that's going on that you don't have any control about, and it's, like at 100%. You can do a technique where the anxiety comes up and you see the thought that's related to the anxiety, and you can just sort of, the idea is to look it in the eye. And just to have a phrase that you say around it. I see you. So in my case, though, with somebody who has an eating disorder. So they're really far along and working on their eating disorder thoughts or their body image thoughts. So maybe they just ate a meal that is a regular sized meal, but it's very triggering for them, and the eating disorder mind comes in. And it's like, oh, you're going to gain weight, you're going to get fat from eating that. We'll train them to see it and recognize you are not it. You are not the current emotional state that is in you. You might be having a feeling of anxiety, but you aren't it. Emotions are shifting all the time. I always have them say, I see you, but you no longer define me. So it's an acknowledgement of the thought or the emotion, but the idea is to not push it away, to not suppress it, and to also not start ruminating and rolling in it. So just, I see you, and then we use what we call Teflon mind. I see you, but you no longer define me, and then gently push it away. Sometimes what I'll do is if I've got a thought that kind of keeps coming in, I have to be very diligent about doing that. And that's hard, because you're not always in the mood to be diligent. If you've got something here going on that makes it harder to use your skill set, it's really tough. But if you're pretty balanced, you can do it. If you really are, it's hard, because we get lazy. It's easier in a way to think about negative thoughts than it is to get in a positive place. So what I'll do is if a primary emotion is up and a situation is bothering me, and it comes in and it's being fairly intrusive, I'll just kind of imagine that I put it in a balloon and let it float away. So there are just different techniques you can do. Or I'll say, thank you for sharing, bye-bye. Whatever works for you. Okay? Or I'll use what I call the bubble technique. So if I have somebody who's really bothering me and they're just really eating at me, I'll just imagine, I'll do something counterintuitive. So I may be having very, very negative thoughts about them, but that's not helping me at all. That's dysregulating me and kind of I'm carrying them with me, and it's not helping the situation. Okay? Yeah. And so what I'll do is I know this sounds cheesy. There's just no cool way to say it. So we call it the bubble technique. So I'll put them in a bubble. I'll surround them with peace and love, and I just move them out of my place. And believe me, if it's somebody who's really irritating me, I have to put them in a bubble a lot. I'm like, oh, the bubble again. I mean, it really, and typically what I'll have to do, when I used to play tennis, when I was on the tennis team, I noticed that would be something that's an example of a distress tolerance technique for me. So if I had something that was really kind of spinning me out before I went to tennis, when I got to tennis, and especially if I was competing that day, that would be a distress tolerance technique for me. So that's something that would literally put the pain up on the shelf, because it requires, playing tennis, especially when you're competing, has such a throw yourself in quality to it. So engaging in activity like that. So if I had a particularly stressful week, I may up my tennis playing. So I may engage in more of that to just kind of help me return to baseline with whatever issue I'm dealing with and make it a little easier for me to use my other techniques. Depends, again, on how big the emotion is. Yeah. Coming into me in a highly, let's say dysregulated state, your emotion is in crisis emergence. So we would start with behaviors that you would do to jump yourself out, but also come back to. Okay, so there'd be a going away but coming back, because we don't want to have a whole lot of accumulated unresolved griefs. So let me go to the next one. It'll hopefully help. Okay, because I think this one will help. All right, so let's say everybody's got their different idea of all the different labels of emotions and how many there are, and a lot of the people that I work with and the therapy that I use, it pretty much singles them down to. And not everybody agrees on this, but basically all things come from two primary emotions if we're going to kind of melt them down into two, because there are very many, as you can imagine. And basically, again, it sounds a little bit cheesy, but they're fear and love. Okay? So fear and love. Okay? So think about if somebody is interacting with you, so you're talking to somebody and it doesn't feel good on your end, so it elicits kind of a not good feeling on your end, typically that person is coming from a place of fear. Okay? If somebody's engaging with you and communicating with you in a way that feels good, it's usually coming from a place of love. You know, so those two. But beyond that, there are a lot of theoretical orientations that talk about 22 emotions. Okay, so we're not going to go through all 22, but I just want to give you something to think about. Okay, and a takeaway for today. And it's a few minutes to time that people might have to leave and go to other classes. So please feel free. Okay, so over here, think of it as a gas tank. Okay, and over here, let's say you're full, but it's kind of full of negative emotion. Okay, so if you're going to use your current emotional state as an indicator of where you are, so most people would agree that depression, maybe sad's here, anger, for most people, anger is a better feeling than depression or sad. And so it's considered here. Let's say here, well, actually, let's put it more here. Overwhelmed is definitely way over here. Okay, so overwhelmed. Let's put bored. I read a bumper sticker a few days ago that said, if you're bored, it's your fault. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. Okay, and so, let's say over here you've got joy, peace, happy. Okay, they're pretty much in the same zone. And yesterday we were talking about most spiritual leaders, so whether it's Eckhart Tolle or Wayne Dyer or ancient philosophies that we read about, most people would agree that, and everybody has their different opinion about happiness, okay? But I'm coming from a perspective of, to me, happiness is an innate state of being, okay? So, meaning that it's by focusing on what you don't have or what's not going well that typically leads to our unhappiness, okay? So if you see children, they're more in their innate state. They're, and whatever you want to call it, I try to speak in a way that is non-denominational, so hopefully it should be okay to you, whatever your belief system is. So when you are closest to your innate state, and you're usually here, okay? So you're more in connection with the essence of you, or like Eckhart Tolle calls it, you're in connection with the life beneath you, okay? So if you use your current emotional, you use your primary emotion to tell you where you are, and you find that you're over here, and you've identified that it's been there for a pretty long time, and it's probably, maybe it's something externally, okay? You over here would typically have more to do with, what they've been studying since Freud, is the one who got us thinking about this first, but most spiritual leaders believe in it, go with his philosophy as well. If you're over here, typically you're egoic mind, and I don't mean ego in the way like I've got a big ego. I'm not using it in that way, but most people would consider their egoic mind their false self. Okay, so in my caseload, when I have a client who is 90% of the time thinking eating disorder thoughts, they're very negative in nature, and that's very mind-made. I mean, it's multifactorial, and there are other issues going on. But typically, the egoic mind has taken hold. And it's not like that life beneath us is ever destroyed. It can't be destroyed, but let's just say that they have very little access to it. So the more preoccupation you have about anything, you can play the hokey pokey with the subject. Okay, it could be about anything. The more preoccupation you have, the less access you have to the truth. Do you see what I'm saying? So it kind of squeezes out, sort of edges out that part of you, your essence. So you're more connected with your essence when you feel good. So typically, the mind, it's why we, he was talking about how you don't find negativity in nature. Okay, so you don't typically see like a stressed out oak tree or like a frog with low self-esteem. Okay, so typically, and with children, okay, so children, I see it all the time with my 14-month-old. She is in pre-thought. Okay, so she's talk about present moment awareness. I have, we're trying to evolve thought. So my mental mind is creating suffering for me. I'm the one who's like having breakdowns and sad and missing her and hoping that she's okay. She's just like doing whatever she's doing right now. She's like, where's my mom? But like, cool, there's a new toy. Do you know what I mean? So she's so present and she's pre-thought that she doesn't have a lot of suffering. So if you see children, the other day, this is such a random example. I was on the canal bank crossing over, and I saw this little 3-year-old just looking at a rock and just playing and just laughing and looking at it. And for us, it takes Cirque du Soleil. Do you see what I'm saying? But for them, they're just they're so present. So they are more at their innate state of being. They're more here. So here's what the takeaway is for today. And if people are interested in coming tomorrow, you've got homework, but hopefully it's a good one. Okay, so the single quickest way to reach for a better feeling, because the idea is that you can get here from wherever you are. Okay, so it's not like, oh, I'm here and I'm going to go here, but you can kind of continuously reach for a better feeling thought. And one of the quickest ways to get to your natural state is gratitude. So when you are feeling grateful, so what I'll have clients do on a regular basis is do gratitude lists. And it's so cool, because when they do a gratitude list and I get it emailed to me, I feel better. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's grateful for like coconut soap and her parents, even though they're kind of kooky, and like warm, comfy down comforters and cold weather and the grass beneath their feet. I mean, it's just cool. So everybody, when they really kind of get into it, initially there's a little bit of resistance, because when you're feeling funky, you're not motivated to do something that would make you feel better. So continuously reaching for a better feeling thought and a better feeling. But if they can feel the resistance and do it anyway, and start with their gratitude list and start doing them daily, while they're doing it, and talk about something that has a prolonged state of well-being, you'll start to feel better, So if you get into the habit of doing something like that, it's one of the single quickest ways is gratitude. So that would be a cool thing. If people are interested in doing a gratitude list, I'd love to see